So, man, this is a bit of a new one, having the coaches out here. That's probably how you can tell it's a big fight, right?
Yeah.
Have you found, I don't want you to just sit up there and sort of talk negatively about one of your peers, but have you found some of Fernand's behavior in the lead up to this a bit sort of distasteful?
You know, I think sometimes for me, I have to sit down and look at this from both sides of the fence. Naturally, you want to always defend your side, your team, your fighter. But I understand there's a lot of emotions involved, you know. I've been in that situation where fighters have left or relationships didn't work out. And I think that a lot of this is riding on high emotions when it comes to Ferdinand. So I try to be empathetic and understanding his situation. Yeah, but there's things that I think that I would have maybe not done or not said. And then there's things that I've read, and I have to do my due diligence and look at the source. And maybe that wasn't what he said. Maybe it's taken out of context. Honestly, I'm just trying to give everybody the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this situation. I have to be empathetic to their relationship. And I'll tell you the most mature thing for me has been Francis. And he says to me, I don't ever want you to feel a certain way about somebody because of my relationship with that person. It's up to you to decide how you feel about that person through your interactions. And my interactions with Coach Lopez have only really been pleasant and respect back and forth. You know, he made a post, I think last Sunday, kind of calling me a hypocrite about some of the sparring footage stuff on his Instagram. And that was really the only time I'm like, come on, bro, like this isn't about me and you. And the question I was asked was if I have ever shared sparring footage at my gym. And it never was brought up his name, nothing. My answer to that was no. I still to this day have never shared sparring footage. And I elaborated on that. I said, you don't even know if it was Ferdinand that shared that sparring footage. You don't know if this is maybe a common practice of theirs at their gym or their team. And if that's the case, I think it's to each is their own. I come up from the Xtreme Couture lineage. We just never did that there. But maybe they do it there. And if that's the case, don't take it as a surprise. It's something that they've done in the past. You can look at it either way, but for me, I try to understand both situations, if you will.
There's an argument though, right? Sharing sparring footage kind of has to be done with the consent of all parties involved, right?
From my upbringing, yes. From my upbringing, you know, if Jay Heron saw you with a camera, you know, you're gonna catch licks. Like, what's this dude doing with the camera? You know, so, and that's just where we're from with it. And now to this day, with our standard in the gym, this happened recently. One of the Russian guys that was sparring Sean Strickland, he said, Sean, may I film the session for our looking at the details of what we're doing wrong against you? And Sean said, yes, please, that's no problem at all, but please don't share it or send it out there. You know, Sean will probably share it, do some crazy shit with it. But regardless, that's kind of been our MO, is to make sure that you check and see if it's okay with the person that's involved.
You mentioned the emotions behind this fight. I'm curious, has it been difficult, or what have you had to do to keep Francis calm and not get sort of overly emotional and over pissed off about some stuff?
Not add any more to it. You know, I don't sit around and just keep poking the bear, like, how do you feel about, you know, honest to God, like, we just go about our day and train, and if he brings it up, I'll listen. We've been together for a long time, and I think people kind of forget, like, during the pandemic, it was just me and him. We trained in a training room by ourselves for weeks on end, not knowing what the future was going to hold for us, whether we're fighting or not. So you want to talk about, like, being vulnerable from both parties, it was me and him. So I have a pretty good idea of his emotional capacity and where he's at. If he's feeling a certain thing, he's going to talk to me about it. And, you know, I think that's important as a coach, to be able to understand your fighter and know what you have and what makes him tick. But this hasn't really been a lot of our narrative at all, to be quite fair.
Let's move away from that sort of stuff to the fight itself. Obviously, Cyryl's on a great run right now, and people are touting him as the new evolution of heavyweight and stuff like that. So I'm curious for you, where does Francis succeed where everyone else has not been able to?
I think you just have a guy who has this effect to him when he walks in the cage. A daunting figure, a guy with the type of power that a lot of people have never seen. The thing that stands out to me the most a lot of times is really just an energy that you get, and it was something that I picked up on when we fought Jairzinho, when we were walking to get lined up to go out of the tunnel. At one point, Jairzinho saw us walking down the corridor, and he was facing the apron, and then turned and looked and saw Francis, and the body language changed immediately, and his energy changed immediately. And I felt like he knew what he was getting locked into a cage with. So I think we play on that a little bit, you know. These two have moved around with one another. They touched, sparred, or played, or trained, or whatever it may be. And I think I lean heavily on Francis's experience with Ciryl in those moments, not necessarily from a technical prowess standpoint, but moreover just from a vibe. How did you feel? What did you see? What did you get? What reactions did you pick up on? And man, this man's an anomaly, Ciryl. He's very, very good, and reminds me of kind of like that Travis Brown era. Remember when Travis Brown came in, and you're like, man, this heavyweight moves different, you know? And he's very, very good.
It's funny, the sparring stuff has been made into a big story, but it's kind of funny because I feel like sparring's never necessarily a representation of the fight. But with Francis, I feel even more so, right? Because he can't use essentially one of his best tools where you can just knock people's lights out in sparring. So how much will that sparring affect the fight, or is it just completely irrelevant and we're just using it to drum up some attention?
I think it's depicted on the fighter, to be honest with you, but I'm with you. I don't take a lot of investment into that type of sparring. Remember, when you're sparring, you're training, you're grappling, there's things that you should be working on. You should be trying to do things that maybe take you out of your comfort zone, because where do you improve? And that should be in the training room. So you should be vulnerable at times. You know, if you're working on your southpaw, or you're working on certain things when it comes to the grappling element, you shouldn't be afraid to go get tapped. That's the idea, is to be vulnerable in those situations, to work on those things. So I don't take a whole lot into it, to be honest with you. I got a guy in Punahele Soriano. He can't hit people hard in the training room because we're going to have a lot of knocked out people. Dan Ige, the same way. When people see Dan train in the gym, they're like, he doesn't really look that great. Wait till you put 4-ounce gloves on the kid and let him hit somebody full speed. He's going to hit you hard, and it's just different. So I don't take a whole lot of stock into it, to be honest with you.
Last one from me. If Francis and Tyson Fury do end up boxing, are you in his corner?
Oh, I'm with him 100%. Whatever he wants. I'll hold his towel. I don't care. But we have a great coach in Dewey Cooper. He coaches boxing professionally. You got professional boxers left and right. He's in great hands when it comes to Dewey. But you guys got to remember, like, we're a big family. We're a big team. So what any role that Francis needs me for, if it's in boxing or not, I'm always there. I'm always going to have his back. So it doesn't matter to me.
We've heard from a lot of fighters, like off the top of my head, like when Aaron Pico left his team to go to Jackson Wink said he fixed up maybe some tendencies. Like it wasn't that they were bad, just fix some stuff up. So when Francis joined your team, was it similar that he maybe had some tendencies that you're like, well, where did you learn this? Or was it just you had to start over fresh with him when you walked in?
No, remember, like, man, he came to the gym with already a title fight under his belt. And a lot of my process was just listening to him and hearing where I felt like I could help him. So instead of him coming to me and just trying to sell it, like, oh, here's what we can do to make you better, I wanted to take the time and just really understand who and what Francis is as an athlete, and maybe areas in more of his mental game rather than his skill set. Where can we find areas to improve and grow? And that, to me, was kind of where we really hit it off. You know, and I just asked those questions, you know, hey, how did the fight go? Well, how did you feel against Stipe? How did you feel against Derek Lewis? So I didn't want to make those same mistakes twice. And then obviously through the gym and the coaching staff that we have there and the system that we have, we're not necessarily a goal-oriented gym, but we're a growth-oriented gym. And as long as we're growing in certain areas and getting better, I think good things are going to happen. So, you know, credit to Ferdinand and bringing him up and, you know, made him the guy that he is. And I think that all we did was really fill in some of those gaps that I think he needed. And that was moreover from the gym and the system that he's in.
And looking at Cyryl's skill set in the octagon, how would you compare his style of striking, like his Muay Thai background, his style to like the Overeems and the Jairzinhos and everyone that Francis has fought?
Very efficient. When I think of Ciryl, I think of efficiency right away. And the other thing that I really think that he does very, very well is he doesn't get squared up too much. You know, he's never stuck in one spot. He's never stuck in the sand. His feints, his motions, his rhythm. It's very beautiful to watch, man. This guy is a great striker. And he doesn't get squared up, meaning like he doesn't really seem like he gets hit too often. He's never really out of place. So that's been the fun part for me the last 4 or 5 months, is just trying to find ways to connect, to be honest with you.
Right over here, Eric. I was just curious, you listed Puna and Dan Ige. Obviously, you work with Aljo and tons of fighters. But in what way is Francis your masterpiece as a coach?
That's a great question. And I think for me, it's more of a I wouldn't say the X's and O's. It's really helped me as a coach to understand how to connect with him in the way he likes to learn. The way I have to explain things to him sometimes might have a language barrier, but I can show him look, see, do, like Jon Jones will talk about, like show him, explain it to him and the reasons why. To maybe if it's a combination, I don't want to explain to him, we're just going to throw this combination. I like to explain to him why. Why are we throwing this specific combination? And what is the purpose of this combination? What will it set up? What will it negate? And those things for him, I think, starts to process easier. And so it's really been fun for me to evolve as a coach too, as in a different type of training element where, you know, most guys I think you can talk to or show and then they just pick it up right away, where Francis is a very analytical thinker, I think, when it comes to the MMA game. So, you know, it's been a lot of fun working with him, man. He's an athlete by nature. You throw him in there and he's going to pick up stuff pretty quickly. And so it's been a lot of fun for me.
Eric, right here. I kind of ask this very selfishly, but I always wonder, when you have a guy like Francis, and I know you're all professionals, you all know what you're doing out there, but what are some of the reactions when you tell people you're going to hold pads for Francis Ngannou?
It's like, you know, when you see those guys go shark diving or jumping in the cage, and you're like, oh man, at any point, if this shark wants to rip your arm off, it can and it will. You know, so you're minding your P's and Q's when you're in there. And thank God he's accurate. You know, thank God he hits the pad correctly. But it is, man, it's a sight to behold. And the guy has power in all hands, in all limbs for that matter. And it's actually quite a rush, to be honest with you, you know, to get in there and get hit a little bit by him.
In terms of the actual day of the fight, can you talk a little bit about what that routine is? Are you a coach who's around the athlete a lot, or do you maybe, you know, catch up to him later in the night? Do you give a motivational speech, or just can you talk a little bit about the process?
Each fighter is different. Particularly with Francis, we're very lighthearted and we're very mellow. And sometimes, I remember the first time cornering him against JDS, I was like, are we going to have to wake him up? Like, we're about to go fight. And then you learn that this is his personality. He doesn't need to be big rah-rah, big speech, big this, big that. And I think for me as a coach, I have to adapt to the athlete and give him what he needs when he needs it. And I think that comes over time. It's organic. So fight day usually is pretty mellow. We'll sleep in a little bit. We'll go hit a shakeout. We'll go get lunch together. He'll catch a nap. And then obviously we'll gear up and go. But for me, it becomes very tunnel vision, very business-like. For me, I don't joke around too much, maybe pop one here or there. But the moment we get taped up and it's time to go, man, all of our attitudes change and becomes very business-like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, over here, mate. I'm just wondering, out of 10, how much of a reality do you think it is that Francis will actually fight Tyson Fury?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know enough about boxing to give you that accurate assessment. I know Tyson's out there tweeting and talking and this and that, but my vision and my eyesight has never changed from Ciryl. It's nice. It's nice that yes, that might be an option, but we have a serious contender on our hands in front of us, so I haven't really looked too much into it, to be quite fair.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, would you guys like that in 4 rounds? gloves if it was to go ahead.
Hell yeah.
I thought so.
You know, that's us. You know, we've been in 4-ounce gloves before, so we know what he's capable of doing. So I think it definitely tips the scales a little bit more towards our favor.
Awesome. Thank you, mate.
Of course.
Eric, down here to your right. I know it might be a little premature, and obviously Gane is going to be the focus, but Jon Jones is kind of looming in the future. Have you thought at all about that fight for Francis and what that could be?
Not as much lately, Mark. I think for me, you know, you and I talked about this quite a bit. The narrative was the winner out of Stipe and Francis is getting Jon Jones. And so my focus immediately went on to Jon, and then it kind of fizzled, and it was, you know, okay, well, maybe it's going to be Derek Lewis next, or then maybe it's going to be Ciryl, Derek, whatever, whoever the winner of that. I hope that fight does happen. I'm a competitor, man, and I want to be able to compete against the best, and I know Francis feels the same way. And who doesn't want to see Jon Jones and Francis and possibly the greatest mixed martial artist to ever do it? I think it's something that should be ran. But, you know, now that ship is kind of sailed for the time being, and we have a task at hand with Ciryl, and that's been my focus. But, yeah, hopefully someday that fight comes to fruition.
Thank you.